Hi everyone, this is Steve Palladino from Palladino Power Project and bringing you another video, this time on WKO and more specifically the Run Summary Report. I'm just going to go through that report and what I have in there. Um, it's the Run Summary Report, and it's cut off a little bit here on your screen, but it's called Run Summary Report. It's in the Run Summary dashboard, which includes this graphic display, power and speed and elevation, and another version of it down here. It gives you slightly different views, but we're going to focus on this, the Run Summary Report, on this particular video. Um, and just as an aside, WKO is arranged so that it has an athlete view, which is sort of the overall picture of combined data, and it has a workout view, which allows you to look at individual workouts. Um, and these are called views. And a view contains multiple dashboards, and a dashboard will contain multiple uh, charts and reports that are related. So it's sort of like a tree where you have a view, um, which contains multiple dashboards, and then the dashboard contains multiple charts and reports. And this video is just on this one particular report, which I use as a primary method of analyzing workouts and such. So let's look at what's on here. And another thing I'm going to show is how you can analyze data in different ways using this report as well. So first thing, in WKO, any chart or report can be sort of maximized or focused on just by clicking this bar, the title bar right here, or you come over to here where it has a downward arrow and it'll have zoom this chart. So that's sort of like maximizing the chart or zooming in on that particular chart. So watch as I double click on there, it brings the whole report up, and that's the whole thing on the screen in the middle where the report is. Another thing about the report is that right now it's displaying what is selected over here on the right hand Explorer. And right now it's displaying the entire workout, even says so right here. Draws in the data, averages, etc. for that entire workout. You can also select multiple segments of that workout. In this case, each one of these are an interval, and it will populate the averages and numbers for each respective interval. So you can see here lap 9, 11, 13, 15, 17, 19. Those are each intervals, and you can see here they're labeled as such here. And furthermore, WKO comes with some default durations and even distances. So if I take this workout, which amounted to about 10 Ks worth of work, and I could just select that on the right hand edge, and then I could see that the averages and the numbers for that particular segment, which is what WKO has found to be the fastest 10K segment of the entire workout. Okay, so with those introductory comments aside, let's go back to looking at these various metrics that I have on here. I should also comment that the way I constructed this, I constructed with the metrics that I look at the most or give the highest priority to. I put them near the top, so I don't have to scroll down. The when I have to scroll down, as you scroll further down, it's like there's metrics that are buried down there that are I only use once in a while sometimes to a deeper dive on a particular segment or such. Another look at certain ways of looking at the workout. Um, again, it's sort of prioritized with the most important at the top, and it sort of flows that way. And then down below is stuff that I haven't quite eliminated yet off of the report because I still go back there once in a while and take a look at this stuff. So what we have here is the TSB, the training stress balance for that day, and the ramp rate on that particular day. The reason I have those there, and you can see this athlete's a positive TSB, and the ramp rate is negative. The reason I have those there is if I'm looking at a workout, and let's say the workout was a fail, and I'm seeing a very negative TSB or ramp rate, it's right there for me to look at as I'm looking at the workout. So it draws that information in from the training load metrics. It allows me to know where the athlete was on that given day with regard to those two training load metrics. Also for races, it allows me to, was this a B race? Is it an A race? I can look and see how well these metrics here reflect the taper for that given race. So I like having that up there. It just gives me a sort of an overview, a feel for where the athlete was on that particular day. The average power, that's AP, average power in watts, the average power in watts per kilogram. I like to have those side by side. This uses the athlete's weight that's entered into the into WKO, and it must match the stride weight setting for this to be accurate. So you want the input weight for the athlete to match the stride weight setting. And if you don't change the stride weight setting, then you don't have to worry about changing the WKO weight setting. You just leave it fixed, and then this number will always be right. The percent of, I put SFTP, that's the old nomenclature for your set FTP. WKO allows you to override the model FTP by entering in another FTP setting for the run. Now they call it run FTP. I didn't change it. It just I use MFTP for the modeled FTP and SFTP for the set FTP. And that's the one I prefer because I will override MFTP in some occasions, and some occasions I'll use exactly what MFTP is, but in all cases the SFTP is what I'm operating with for that particular athlete. So I like to look at the percentage of set FTP. In this case, it was 89% for the fastest 10K segment of this workout. And like I said before, and I'm just going to demonstrate this, if I select all these intervals, it's going to give me the percent of FTP for each interval. The average power, the set FTP, of course, these numbers up here don't change, but these will be reported for each particular interval. All right, let's go back. This time is the duration. So it'd be race time, or it's the file duration, or if I wanted to look at the fastest 10K segment, there's the fastest 10K segment right here, 34:27. It gives you the distance. I have both miles and kilometers because I have athletes that work in miles and others that work in kilometers. And for me, it's like rather than doing math in my head, it's right there. I have them both. It has pace in minutes per mile and pace in terms of minutes per kilometer. That's displayed here. The next set is running effectiveness, or RE, and these other metrics allow me to interpret running effectiveness. Running effectiveness can be affected by air resistance, i.e. air power, hilliness, fatigue, relative intensity, and even some technical factors. But this allows me to interpret those. So the CVI is the course variability index. It's the total feet of climbing divided by the total number of miles covered. I use feet per mile. And so the 16 is a fairly flat situation. This was actually run in a fairly flat area. CVI plus net will not only give you the hilliness, relative hilliness, but the net allows you to identify a net downhill or net uphill. So if you do a route where you step out your front door and you run a route, that's going to have the CVI is going to be equal to the CVI plus net, because you're not really gaining or losing. I mean, of course, yeah, there can be some slight variations in your altitude reading over the course of a run, so that the baseline changes a little bit. But if I saw a CVI of 16 and a CVI plus net of 31, that's a net. It's a fairly flat, but it's a net uphill. There's not a lot of undulations, but it's a net uphill. If the number CVI plus net is lower than the CVI, that means it's a net downhill. It's subtracting out the net differences from start to finish on a point-to-point course. Let's say I had a CVI of 16 and a CVI plus net of 5. That means that there is about a 5-foot loss in elevation from point to point on this particular course. I'm just curious. I'm not sure, because I know this was not run on a track, and I want to see if any of these laps here, any of these intervals, whether any of those were net uphill. So this one here looks like a slight uphill. This one looks like a minimal downhill. This looks like about fairly flat. This one here looks like maybe a slight uphill. This one's just, more, a slight uphill. This one's a slight uphill. So sometimes you can tell just by looking at that. Was this a slight uphill, slight downhill? Now, when you have a higher CVI, and in particular when you have a higher CVI plus net, it's going to have the effect of lowering running effectiveness. So this allows me to interpret running effectiveness. All right, so theoretically, you expect it to be the same all the way across if the intensity is about the same. But here we have various hill factors, but also you can see here this estimates the effect of hills on running effectiveness. So a percent minus 0.7%. So this is lowering running effectiveness a little bit. This one here is increasing running effectiveness a little bit, increasing running effectiveness a little bit, etc. The wind effect is takes into air power and will determine what effect the air power had on running effectiveness. If it's negative, it's having an effect of lowering it a little bit more. Now, keep in mind, these are small numbers here, and that's probably not all that significant. But if you saw one where all of a sudden it's minus 1.2, and then this one's minus 7%, and a much lower running effectiveness, that sort of explains why you have the running effectiveness. Now, the hilliness and the wind can cancel each other out or be additive, and that's why I have the combined of these two, which is what you see down here. So you'll see in this case, his running effectiveness was improved just a little bit by the combination of these factors, and over here on the left, his running effectiveness was diminished somewhat by these factors. So again, I have running effectiveness, but I have these other things here for allowing me to interpret running effectiveness. The next is the dynamics, the running dynamics. Let me scroll back down. And what we have here is horizontal power ratio. Now, Power Center, Stride Power Center reports form power and therefore form power ratio, which is basically the complement of this horizontal power ratio. I like following horizontal power ratio because it's telling me the percentage of power that's being directed horizontally, moving the athlete forward. Form power ratio, that would be the like I said, the complement. So that's in this case about 25.6%. That's the amount of power being used for up and down and side to side movement of the athlete as they run. I prefer to look at this, in which case higher is better. All right. In form power ratio, it's the opposite. Lower is better. I have form power ratio, but guess where it's at? It's way down here. Why? Because I don't need it. I have horizontal power ratio. That tells me all I need to know about that athlete's power vector, so to speak, how their power is being distributed to the horizontal movement of the athlete. Leg spring stiffness per kilogram. I don't look at leg spring stiffness. Guess where that is? That's buried way down here. I'm not even sure. There it is. There's the raw leg spring stiffness. I don't care. I'm dealing with athletes, multiple athletes, and because I'm dealing with multiple athletes, I need to have some relativity. And so dividing by their stride weight setting, which is also the WKO weight setting, allows me to get a leg spring stiffness per kilogram value. This is a little on the low side. I'm curious what happens when we look at each of these particular intervals, and we can see it's much higher. The other one was for the entire workout. This is looking at each interval where he's going faster, and so he's getting more leg spring stiffness manifest. So 0.70 and above, that's pretty good. Actually, I like to see 0 0.16 and higher. That's pretty nice. Um, and the next one is ground contact time. That's in milliseconds. Under 200 is very good. This is pretty elite stuff right here. I use power to ground contact time. That's taking the average power, dividing it by ground contact time, coming up with this number here. And generally, if there's fatigue progressing, we know that with fatigue, power is going to decline. With fatigue, ground contact time is going to increase. You're going to spend more time on the ground, and you're going to generate more power. So when you have these both, the power in the numerator and the ground contact time in the denominator, it multiplies that fatigue effect. So if the athlete is fatiguing over these intervals considerably, I start to see the power to ground contact time ratio decline. In this case, it did not. But that's why I have it here. It's power to ground contact time is a good fatigue tell. It's a good metric for following fatigue. Stride rate, I'll look at that. I like looking at that, mainly because that's something else that will change with fatigue. But also, if I have someone's really low and they're not a real tall person, and a tall person generally is going to have a lower stride rate than a shorter person, and then also stride rate changes with speed. So it really requires a lot of interpretation from those perspectives. But if I see one where I know the relative speed, I know their height, etc., I can interpret that. And so I like having that at that level, looking at the dynamics. The next thing I have is I break the stride air power and total power reported into these components. So let's go back to total, just the entire workout, so we're not looking at lots of different numbers here. Come on. There it is. Sorry about that. All right, so basically we have what's reported by stride, the total power, or PT, which is the same as the average power, right? That's the total power reported. And then there's the air power component, which is 3 watts. Then it gives the air power as a percent of the total, 1%, which is on the low side. Although, let's go back again. And because he's running faster, the entire workout includes slow stuff, warm up, and the recoveries, etc. Still not much higher, 2% on a couple of these. So that's rather on the low side. Then I have PR, which actually really should be abbreviated PRC. This is the power used for the running movement and any climbing, and it is essentially the total power minus the air power. So look, we have, let's see if we get one of the numbers that add up, because there's decimal points involved, and this is rounded. 355 is a total power, 4 watts air power, and the PR is 351. PR is what you're going to get if you take your pod onto a treadmill. It's what you would get if you have a non-wind pod, because air power is not reported. Air power is added on to the PR, the non-wind power, to give you the total power. So this allows me to decipher that. I use this component primarily. I look at what the percentage is That's one of the first things I do as I'm scrolling down. I go, oh, was particularly on CP tests and on races. If it's really low, then that they're missing out some of this bonus, which is the air power that gets added on to the PR and is reported as a total power. So that's what those are about: total power, air power in watts, the running power PR, which is simply subtracting air power from total power, and then the percentages that air power and PR occupy. The next one is some other ways of looking at running effectiveness. This is running effectiveness minus the air power. So you can see when you add in air power, that lowers the running effectiveness. This one here is PR. This is total power with the air power. What I look for here is this one here, the RE based on total power, 0.97. RE based on distance divided by duration, which should be the same. RE, that's speed, right? Distance divided by duration is speed, meters per second, so to speak, which is what this is based. But this is based on the speed channel, data channel. This one's based on the distance and duration data channel. So when I see a mismatch like this, it should be identical. It should be identical. But what this means is that the distance calibration may be off. And that's what that is there for. It just allows me to assess this other factor that can affect running effectiveness. Is the distance calibration, is it on or off? So this allows me to sort of sort that out. This is running effectiveness based on normalized graded power. It goes back to the Hill effect, etc. What would it be if there was no hilliness at all? Basically, is what this does. It tells you what running effectiveness would be if there was no hills involved at all. This one tells you what it would be if there was no air power reported, and so on. The next set of metrics I include, because sometimes you have a hilly race or a hilly route, and this gives you some additional ways of analyzing that course, analyze the route that the athlete took. The CVI, course variability index, gives you an indication of hilliness. The CVI plus net, same thing. Average grade, let's say if it's a point-to-point mountain course, then the average grade certainly is not going to be 0. If you go point-to-point, it should be about 0. Net elevation change, this is total feet of climbing during this entire workout. It was only 30, so like I said, it was a flat route. There's the climbing feet and the descending feet. And this is the net elevation change. All right. This allows me to look at, let's go look at these individuals here. It allows me to look at using the 5-minute modeled power. 5-minute modeled power right here is my surrogate for a power at VO2 max. There is no such thing as a single power at VO2 max, but this gives me a ballpark figure. And so this is looking at what his average was in terms of power, a percentage of power at VO2 max. So he's running pretty close to that. And it gives me his percentage of his MFTP. Remember, up here, I have percentage of SFTP. This is percentage of MFTP. This gives you time in zone near VO2 max. It works better for looking at the entire segment, or let's say we use just the 10K, the fastest 10K segment. We can see that this is what he got in this fastest 10K segment in terms of time near these particular markers of VO2 max. The next, it gives you the elevation, the average elevation for where the run is. This is in feet. If I change the formatting to display metric units instead of feet, you can see the number change. So elevation is 21 meters, and I'll switch back and go back to English units, and the elevation here, you can see a little bit, is in feet. This gives you the TSS for that particular workout, 96, but it also gives you the percentage of that TSS versus the person's current CTL, or chronic training load. So this workout, the entire workout, was about 134% of their CTL. This is kilojoules, of work done total. Normalized graded pace, that's pretty evident for most of you that use running watches. This is just elevation corrected or grade corrected power, I should say. This is the speed in meters per second. Normalized power. Now, let's do this. I'm going to go normalized power. If you're familiar with it in cycling, it's sort of like a exponentially weighted moving average of power. And it gives you more of the true effect of power in terms of watts in a variable effort. In running, normalized power really doesn't have much applicability day in, day out. Most of the time, it's the same as AP. Sometimes it's even less, which is never the case in cycling. But in interval training, and probably as well in mountain races or trail races where there's hiking and such, that NP value can be of some value in interpreting your data. So let's go back down and select peak 10K speed. So the fastest 10K segment, which includes those 6 mile repeats, basically. And you can see that his average power, including the rest periods for that fastest 10K segment, that's his interval session, basically, was 318 watts and 89% of the set FTP. However, normalized power was 338 because of the walking segments, the recovery segments. So the net effect, the normalized effect, is 338 watts and 95% of set FTP, a functional threshold power. So you can see that it better reflects the true physiologic stress of that interval session in terms of power. Horizontal ratio is stride length versus vertical oscillation. And so you like, and vertical ratio is the opposite. It's the complement. So vertical ratio is the vertical oscillation versus stride length, or divided by stride length, where horizontal ratio is stride length versus the vertical ratio. So it sort of does the same sort of thing as horizontal power ratio and horizontal form power ratio, but it does it with the without power. It does it with just stride length and vertical oscillation. I also report the vertical oscillation, which to me it doesn't mean a whole lot. I don't follow this very closely. Um, Horizontal power ratio gives me a better reflection, in my opinion, of what's happening um, be, between horizontally directed power and vertically directed power. So this is sort of an obsolete metric in my opinion. Um, Stride length, same thing. You can look at it. Stride length gets a little shorter as you fatigue. Vertical oscillation gets a little higher. So these ratios change, but so does horizontal power ratio. So it's like it's a duplicated type of metric. But nevertheless, I have it here because sometimes I want to go and do a double check. Flight phase is the percentage of time off the ground. Impact G's. This is using a formula that Dr. Coggin developed to calculate impact G's, and it's a rough estimate. I've already talked about form power ratio, the effect of form power ratio on, or the form power on running effectiveness, raw leg spring stiffness. Dr. Coggin also did a power formula that or algorithm equation that allows you to calculate internal power and external power. External power is theoretically is what's moving the legs and moving the body, the center of gravity forward, where internal power is moving the limbs relative to the center of gravity, meaning how much you're swinging your arms, and et cetera, et cetera. It's to me it's only worth it's only there for deeper dives. Economy is basically running economy. It's an equation developed by Van Dyke and Van Meegen in their book, The Secret of Running, and it's a very rough equation that takes your power data and computes what the person's running economy is. Again, it's a calculation. It's rough. It might be ballpark, but it's not the same as going to the lab. This is elevation back again, and then Dr. Coggins developed some conversion factors for elevation correction factor and elevation corrected power. So I have those in there as well. Again, I skimmed over some of these things down below because those are things that I go to infrequently, and most of the analysis is done up here as we have demonstrated. So just one final look and then we'll sign off. There is 6 times 1 mile, 1 minute rests or 1 minute recoveries. Just have the work intervals highlighted, and you can see there are his power numbers, percentages of FTP, the duration it took for each one, the distance covered, his pace, running effectiveness, and some analytics that help you digest running effectiveness, the essential running dynamics, and then looking at the air power components. That's where I spend most of my time in analysis, and then I'll go a little bit further down in selected instances, whether it be a race or interval workout or a hilly trail run, et cetera, et cetera. I go a little bit further down and dig a little bit deeper with these metrics. So there you have it. Hopefully it was helpful. It's a very complete set of metrics that can be used as I've demonstrated for analyzing individual segments or entire workouts, depending on what you're selecting in the right hand Explorer. But that's where I do a lot of my work. In fact, I would say 90% of my analysis is here. We'll get to some of the other charts and such on another video, but that is the meat and potatoes report that I use. Thank you for watching. Sorry for the length. Hopefully it was worthwhile for you, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.